Hi, my name is Jill Bergman, and I am the adoption supervisor at Lucas County Probate Court for Judge Puffenberger. We have several based on your situation. First one would be public agency, and usually that is if you're involved with a county agency. You've either been a foster parent or have received a child during a juvenile court matter and you wish to adopt those children. Usually the Children's Services will provide most of the information, however your attorney will provide the petition. If you're a step-parent and you would like to adopt your spouse's child, it would be a step-parent adoption. The biological parent most times needs to be notified. Even if you don't know where they're at, we do have ways to go about that for a step-parent adoption. Relative adoption is if you're related to the child, you have custody of them either through juvenile court or you've raised them because the parents have abandoned or are deceased and you now wish to adopt them. That would be a relative adoption. Independent adoption, pretty similar to relative, except that you're not related to that child. Adult adoption, a person over 18 and over, and you have established some sort of relationship with that child as an adult, and you need to prove that. It could be a kinship caregiver, a foster parent, a step parent, something along those lines. There's certain qualifications to be able to adopt a person as an adult. A foreign adoption, there's two types for a foreign adoption. One is a readoption, which means you've adopted that child in the country that they were born, and now you want to readopt them in Ohio, most often so that you can get an Ohio birth certificate. You can either do a readoption where you get all the ceremonial, the paperwork, you come to court, take pictures with the judge, or if you don't want to do the ceremonial part, we do have an option where you just file the paperwork and you apply just to get the Ohio birth certificate. Unfortunately, the state of Ohio does not allow for a boyfriend or girlfriend to adopt. It does require that you have to be married. The length of marriage is at least 6 months. However, we do like that there is some sort of relationship established prior to the 6 months of marriage. It is your requirement, your diligence, to try to give the court the whereabouts of the missing parent. Sometimes you don't know where they are, but you do have to do your due diligence to provide the court with their whereabouts. We do allow for publication. It's through Toledo Legal News at this time. They do charge for a fee, and it has to run for a certain amount of time. You do have to do an affidavit and supply it to the court. The judge will look it over and make sure that you've done enough to try to locate that parent. What we don't want to happen is that the other parent come forward and say you knew where they were and they weren't given their day in court. So it's very important that you try every means possible to try and locate that parent. When you're adopting a child, sometimes you don't know who the parent is. The state of Ohio has a registry that if an individual thinks that they've fathered a child and they still want to be a part of that child's life, they can register on what we call a putative father registry. There is a time requirement to be able to register for that registry, which is usually 16 days after the child is born. In Lucas County, we require you to check the putative father registry and the central paternity registry. The central paternity registry is an affidavit of some sort that you sign saying, even if you're not the parent, you're going to say you are, and you sign an affidavit. Most of the times it's done at the hospital. Both of these registries are held in Columbus. You can go online You can register, search to see if anybody has registered, and then you provide us with those results at the time of your filing. A home study is, we hire a caseworker that comes out to your home to make sure that your home is safe and adequate for adoption purposes. Even in a step-parent adoption, even though the child's already living in the home, we as a court need to make sure that the home is a safe environment. You do physicals, you do background checks, you do references. There's quite a bit of things that go into it, and then the report is written to the court stating whether they think that this situation is adequate for adoption purposes. In Lucas County, it's always your right to proceed without an attorney. If the adoption is going to be contested in any way, we strongly urge you to get an attorney. A clerk at the court is not an attorney and cannot provide you with any legal counsel. Ohio also allows for the parent who is contesting to have a court-appointed attorney if they qualify, if they're under the indigent rule. We do not provide attorneys for the petitioning parents. So you don't want to come to court for trial and be not represented to fight your case. It is our practice in Lucas County not to hand out paperwork due to the stipulation that all paperwork has to be typed. It cannot be handwritten. It can be found on our website at lucasprobate.org. It is in case-specific groups. So usually there's instructions on there to tell you how to proceed. The big ones being that it has to be typed and you have to use full names of all parties involved. After the final hearing, the judge will go over paperwork with you. You'll get your final decree showing that the child is formally adopted. The original birth certificate is sealed with whatever state they reside in, and a new one is created with the adoptive parents' names on them. It takes about 30 days for Ohio. Some states are a little bit longer to create the new birth certificate, but know that the state that the child was born always remains the same. It never changes. Just because you're adopted in Ohio doesn't mean you automatically get an Ohio birth certificate. About the time frame for that birth certificate, you would contact the capital of that state to get the new birth certificate, and then you will deal with Social Security and go to Social Security and get a new Social Security card. Most times the number stays the same, but the names will change, or if the name didn't change, the next of kin does. In the state of Ohio, there was a law passed that adoption records were open. It's kind of not that easy. Adoptions are still confidential. Everybody has the right to anonymity. If you want your original birth certificate, you would have to contact the state that you were born and make sure that all of the consents and all the correct paperwork are on file, and then they would release the original birth certificate to you. The court, unfortunately, cannot release any identifying information. If you call the court, the only thing you'll be eligible for is your adoptive final decree and your social medical history, if one was provided to us at the time of the final. There was a time period where the court didn't receive that information, but we cannot give out any birth information. When someone calls and says, hey, I want to adopt, I will usually ask what the circumstances are. Are you married? Is it your spouse? Is it a child that you've come in to have legal custody of? Sometimes it's, no, I just want to adopt. And then I usually will tell them to go online and go to an agency. There's private agencies, public agencies that can help them with that route on what to do. It's a conflict of interest for us to give out any specifics, but if you have a specific child that you have custody of or you want your spouse to adopt, then I can go over that information as far as your paperwork and your court costs and what type of adoption would deem best for your situation.